Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Gallery Bar, Book, and Games in Ocean Casino Resort. All football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Go to the Gallery in Ocean Casino Resort. Go for the win. For more info, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Mike and Ryan live on this Monday as the Eagles coming out of their bye week. The Phillies, of course, are going to the World Series. Geoff Mosher obviously covered that Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl, and I'm sure has a lot of thoughts on this Phillies team, too, that is in the World Series. And we talk about it, Moshe. Moments. We've been talking about it all day. Moments. The Eagles team had the moments. This Phillies team, they have the moments, and that's what you need to cap off a special season, right? I mean, it's all about things that you did not envision happening, entering the fray, and taking your team to that next level.
Yeah, you know, when you go back to the 2017 Eagles, like we can all find those great moments along the way that led up to the greatness of the NFC Championship game and, of course, the Super Bowl and Philly special and the strip sack. I mean, there's the negative moments like the Phillies had, right, where you think back to Week 2, Kansas City, a loss, a game in which LeGarrette Blount got no carries. Doug Peterson basically said that was a bad idea. And then the following week was Week 3 against the Giants. That was a game that was won on Jake Elliott's 1-yard field goal. There was a 4th and 8 conversion, I think, to a 3rd and 8 conversion, to Alshon Jeffrey for 9 yards that set up that field goal. It was a fantastic connection between Wentz and Jeffrey. Then they go out to San Diego the next week. They beat the Chargers. They held the ball for the last 6 minutes and 48 seconds, I believe, of that game after taking the lead. They never put it back in Phillip Rivers' hand. Then came the Thursday night game against the Panthers. We all remember Nigel Bradham, how amazing he seemed to make every third down play, and then Carson going headfirst between Kuechly and Thomas Davis, right, plunging into the end zone, and all along the way, just great moments that made that team special. And I think we're gonna look back on this and just talk about it. It's either starts with a Schwarber leadoff home run or just a Reese Hoskins a Reese home run somewhere, and then Bryce Harper is the finisher. He just comes in when you needed it and puts it away. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at that Eagles run, you just ripped off the 61-yarder. I remember the opener where Wentz, the throw to Nelson Aguilar, that kind of sparked Aguilar's season because he was kind of an afterthought on this team. And that's what's going on with these playoffs right now. It's like these things are sparking guys that you didn't have a lot of expectations for. And I think the Eagles, what they did in that Super Bowl run, there's a lot of parallels to what's going on right now.
It's the whole damn team.
It is. It is the whole dang team. That was a special team, guys, in 17 for a couple of reasons that sometimes don't get discussed. That was such a balanced team because there was no 1,000-yard rusher and no 1,000-yard receiver. And, in fact, I remember going to look this up. There were only, I think, 3 times that whole year that somebody had either 100 yards rushing or 100 yards receiving. I mean, it's hard to find a Super Bowl champion that doesn't have a 1,000-yard rusher or a 1,000-yard receiver, or at least somebody who had a string of a couple of games where they had 100 yards here and there. And then, of course, a guy like Corey Clement, right? Corey Clement's a rookie free agent, and he goes for 100 receiving yards in the Super Bowl in the biggest game. And, that's sort of to me like a guy like Ranger Suarez coming out and get the last out against the Padres. Ranger's not a rookie free agent or an unsung guy as much, but I mean, it's sort of like that. It's just, Edmundo Sosa coming in and giving you some great defense or a big hit. It's everybody.
The improbability is just, it's amazing.
And resiliency is the word you keep hearing too. It's just, and that's championship DNA. Moshe, we're talking about championship DNA and just underdog story and how it's all tied together. Eagles are 6-0 right now. The trade deadline's a week away. The locker room and the chemistry, how much of an impact and a factor is that when Howie Roseman is making calls or maybe not making calls, looking to get this team better but not jeopardize all the positives they have for them right now?
It's a great question, Ryan.
Well, it's like the Phillies. The Phillies needed an addition at the deadline. Do the Eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure they do. I mean, I think there are some areas where you would, of course, I suppose you could say having a better returner, either kick or punt returner, could help. You look at the only area where you'd worry about like injuries would be outside cornerback, because Slay and Bradbury have been so great, but if one of those guys got hurt and you had to play Zach McPherson, I don't think you'd feel as comfortable with your defense at that point. So, but that's the thing. It's hard to trade for a good corner in this league, give up some draft compensation just so that guy could be your third corner in case of an case of an injury that may never happen. They lost Derek Barnett, so they're always one thinner than when they started the season in the pass rushing department. And I think, when you're Howie Roseman, you always look to add a pass rusher if you could. But again, that's not a guy who's most likely going to come in and start over either Josh Sweat or Hassan Reddick. I mean, it would have to be a sort of a blockbuster type guy. So there are individuals out there who could help the team. And Ryan, to your point, I think what he saw in 2017 was that might make him, less risk averse, is that was such a stable locker room that when he added Jay Ajayi, people wondered how that was going to work, because Ajayi kind of, whether it's fair or not, he was in Miami, and that place is a clown show every year. I mean, they're good this year, but they were pretty bad. So, and remember, that was when who's that crazy coach? Gaze was coaching him, and he got along with nobody.
Crazy Eyes Gaze, yeah.
Yeah, Crazy Eyes Gaze. So you weren't sure. It's like all the complaining on the players, or is it the coach? And Ajayi is one of those guys who sort of got set, like they were getting rid of him for a reason, even though he was good. So you kind of wondered, well, how is he going to disrupt this? And you saw it, even with LeGarrette Blount, who had been a journeyman and had been kind of like booted off the Patriots and some other teams. He fit in really well. That Week 2 game where he never got the ball and they lost to Kansas City was a perfect opportunity for him to come out and criticize and rip and say, I should get the ball, and he never did. And then he responded with 2 really good games against the Giants and the Chargers, and then a good season. So I think that if Howie's looking at it, and you guys have heard C.J. Gardner-Johnson even say, like, I'm known for getting under guys' skin. I'm known for, like, kind of that guy who's always on camera. But I knew when I came here, the coaches talked to me that it wasn't about me. It's about the team. A couple of stories in the Philadelphia Inquirer about that. I'll give him credit. It was good stuff. So I think that this locker room has set the tone yet again for that. If you were to bring in someone who maybe just, was known for something not great somewhere, that person would probably fall in line because they want to win a ring.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 from InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast. What do you make of, the Eagles' interest or lack thereof, or was there interest in all these peripheral trades that are happening? The Brian Burns, the McCaffrey stuff. Should they be making calls there? Should they have gotten in? I guess they made an offer to McCaffrey, 3rd-round pick. I don't know if that was a real, like, we want this, or that was just, hey, due diligence, and if they take it, great. 2 first-round picks for Burns. I mean, is that too steep?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd have to go look at what's Burns is coming up on his contract, right? So it's like trading for a guy who's on his who's on the franchise tag. Well, in the offseason, if you do that, the agent's like, well, you just give up 2 first-round picks. Now make him the highest-paid player in the sport. No, we don't want to. Okay, well, then we'll have him walk. You just gave up all that compensation. I'm going to just have my guy walk. So the leverage is usually on the player when he's that close to free agency. And then when you give up that money picks, the agent's like, oh, okay, well, now you really have to pay him because you gave up all that compensation. Now, I'm not saying he's not worth going out to get. He's an excellent player, and it would sort of be weird to have him and Reddick there, just like Carolina last year. But I make of it is that Howie Roseman always picks up the phone, always makes a call. McCaffrey for a 3rd-round pick would have been a pretty good steal, I think. I mean, with this offensive line and the way this quarterback and watching all those guys, run together and do things in the passing game together would have been amazing. And I think the Panthers probably felt that way too.
Yeah, I mean, if you could have got him for a 3rd-round pick. Now, does that we saw what happened to San Francisco yesterday, but does that put San Francisco, I don't know, up somewhere in the peripherals in your mind of the NFC, or are they still behind? I don't know. I don't know how you rank the NFC at this point after what we saw on Sunday, dude.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Adam and I actually talked about that on the pod that dropped this morning. There are a couple of teams that I think people are down on right now that we expect maybe a month from now, you're going to be like, I knew they would get it together. San Francisco is one of those teams. Whether they made the McCaffrey trade or not, I just felt defensively, and I know it didn't look like it yesterday. They've got injuries right now. They had them last year. I think they were 4-4 last year, or they were even a game under 500 about this deep into the season, and then it just turned around. And they're that kind of team. They have talent. They're good culture. So I expect that the Niners will be a formidable foe by the end. I keep waiting for the Packers to get it together, and maybe they just won't, but it won't surprise me if they do. So I think those are two teams that you're looking at now and saying, you don't look so good, so this will be a cakewalk for the Eagles. But, I do think those teams will put it together. And, of course, Dallas, the second time around will be formidable as long as they're somewhat healthy as well.
How are the Giants 6-1?
Smoke and mirrors, baby.
Okay.
Gum,
All right.
gum and popsicle sticks.
All right.
Because they really their defense is very good. And look, I think all three of us thought the same thing. When they went out and got Don Wink Martindale as their defensive coordinator, they're actually a decent defense last year. Sometimes it didn't show because the offense put them, in such bad positions. But we saw it against the Eagles. I mean, they beat the Eagles last year, forced 3 interceptions of Jalen Hurts. And then in the second game, it was 6-6 at the half. And that game was started by Jake Fromm. It was probably the worst game I've ever seen in my life. I wanted to tear my eyes out. But if they ever had like an offense that could move the ball, the defense would have probably been in a better spot. Well, now they have good coaching on offense. Now they've got Daniel Jones healthy, playing well, Barkley healthy, playing well. They had upgraded the offensive line to be better. They're really struggling at receiver, but Mike Kafka's creativity there with the routes and combinations and concepts is making it work. And so I think they're formidable, right? To your point, like I don't look at them as a team that I think is a Super Bowl contender. And I don't want to equate it to the Eagles of last year in the second half because they've actually beaten some decent teams, including the Titans in that comeback game and the Packers, or even though they're bad, we know they're a tough team to beat in Green Bay and all that. But it's not like I think they're going to be 12-2 though after 13 games or 14 games.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
and then you saw Dallas yesterday. I thought with Dallas, their defense is really good, but I don't know what to think because Detroit had this great offense going, Moshe, and then they got shut out by the Patriots, and now they score 6 points yesterday. So, are you impressed that Dallas was able, because most people say, well, Philly gave up 35 to that Detroit offense. Dallas only gave up 6. I thought the Dallas offense was trying to find its way yesterday. So what
Definitely
do you make of that, the way they handled Detroit yesterday?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I really do think the Dallas Cowboy defense is excellent. And it's going to be one of the reasons that they're going to be a contender. They obviously have to beat the Eagles. They didn't do it once, and then we'll see what happens in the second rematch. Now Kaplan said this a couple of weeks ago on a podcast, and my jaw almost hit the ground just thinking about it. But he said, imagine a Cowboys-Eagles NFC Championship game. And I suppose the way the seeding works out, that could happen. And you know what? Just not only the way the seedings work out, but these two are very possibly the best teams in the NFC because the NFC right now is actually – we talked about this this morning. Like the NFL, you've got the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles as the top 3 teams. Whatever way you want to put it in, it's fine. Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, whatever. The fourth best team is an argument between 5 teams, and on any given week that could change.
Yeah, I mean, when I do my Find 5 Ugly 5, I struggle to find 5 teams.
Oh, this year has got to be. Oh man,
it is tough to find 5 teams. But I would say. I mean, I haven't put mine together for tomorrow yet, but I would say Dallas is probably 4.
Probably.
And, I don't know. Are you favoring
list.
Minnesota or the Giants?
No, I would actually probably put the
Cincinnati?
Ravens or Cincinnati in there. I think Cincinnati is also one of those teams that by the end of the year, they're just going to have it together.
Yeah.
The Seahawks have played great. I can't dismiss or deny what they've done, but I don't see the Seahawks going further than I would like Baltimore or Cincinnati.
Well, I guess the question for both you guys would be, which NFL team, because it's so wide open, is the Phillies? You don't believe in them, but if they got into the playoffs, you wouldn't be shocked.
It's a good question. I mean,
Which NFL team? It could be the Giants. It really could be the Giants.
See, this is interesting because my thing with the Phillies was, to me, the ceiling was they could win the World Series. They had 2 top-end starters. You have Bryce Harper and JT, and you have guys. I mean, you wouldn't be like, this team can't win the World Series. Don't you think, though, like, you'd be pretty shocked if you – like, do you think the Giants, even if they make the playoffs, you would be like, I can see them winning the Super Bowl?
Oh! I thought you meant just advancing far. I didn't know you meant in the Super Bowl. No, I could not see the Giants in the Super Bowl. Not by the slightest.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm struggling.
I would go back then to the 49ers then, if that was. Although I think people already. Yeah. Look, I'll tell you. I'll give you one team that maybe is now time to watch a little bit. They may get their stuff together, and you sort of have to hit rock bottom first or have dissension before it all comes together.
Yeah.
But when DeAndre Hopkins came back, that Arizona Cardinals offense, I mean, now granted, they got 2 defensive touchdowns, but what did he catch? Like 11 passes for 100-something yards in his first game back? Yeah. And then they traded for Robbie Anderson.
True.
Rondale Moore was their slot receiver. You know, their defense is actually better than people realize. We saw that when Philadelphia went out there. So maybe there's something there, but Super Bowl is tough.
I got one that I do not believe at all. The Denver Broncos.
No.
I don't believe it, but they have the talent. I mean, what the offseason talk was.
I thought you said NFC only, but okay.
I mean, no, I think it would, and it's like a team that's would get in as a wild card, and their record's not all that sparkling, much like the Bengals last year.
Yeah,
right. The Broncos is a tough sell. You're right, Bri. I mean, I get why you say that because of the talent that's there, and if things got straightened, you could see it. But they're in such a tough division that it's going to be difficult for them to make.
Any of you guys buying the Jets?
No,
not now because they just lost Breece Hall. They just lost Elijah Vera Tucker. I mean, I don't think Zach Wilson has played very well in general. So, nah, man. No, really, no.
Yeah, I never want to buy the Jets.
All right, so we're having some fun throwing some teams around here. Anybody think that Tampa gets their act together?
I think they get their act together. I think they finish above 500. That's probably a team that you make a good point where, let's say they rattle off 5 out of 6 at the end of November and December, and they're playing hot. That of course you can't ever kind of count Brady out at that point. But they are really in deep right now. I mean, they are getting embarrassed by teams at this point.
Oh, yesterday.
The Panthers? Are you kidding me?
Oh, listen,
it's ugly.
I thought yesterday that game was about as ugly as his loss that you can pin for the entire season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Combined with the fact, boys, that they lost last week to Pittsburgh.
It just seems like Brady's unraveling, right? Like it's not just, the team's off to a slow start. I mean, everything going on, it's just this might finally be the year where, they actually don't get it together.
Eagles bye week in the books. They'll play Pittsburgh. We'll have it on Football at 4 all week long. And, of course, on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, the 4 teams that had the bye week yesterday, Minnesota, Buffalo, the Rams, and Philadelphia. I mean, you had 4 pretty high-powered teams on the bye yesterday. So you had some stinkers in the NFL.
By the way, the Rams, that's sort of an interesting named team of a team that's really been disappointing so far, but maybe just has enough talent that by the end of the year you're like, that makes sense. They're better now.
True. That one, the Chargers got lambasted yesterday at home. Not that playing at home for them matters, but
the bottom line is the league is a tough watch this year, and when you have 3, and when there's only 3 or 4 good teams and 3 of them are on a bye week at the same time, I mean. These games were tough watches yesterday. Several of them were.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. He'll be back on Wednesday. We'll take a look at Eagles and Steelers right here on Football at 4. Thank you, Moshe.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right, that's Geoff Mosher. Tomorrow, Adam Kaplan is here. Give us his bye week thoughts.